Welcome to another COVID-19 based webinar. It will be available in our library once recording's finished, so generally within 24 hours, but probably by this afternoon. I've now been working from home for some 6 weeks, and I thought I'd become pretty well adjusted to the situation, though there's always more to learn. For instance, I wish I'd known to take home my desk monitor when I'd left the office on that Monday evening, rather than having to drive back to Slough a fortnight ago when it all became too much. Anyway, with far more practical information, Fiona Frost from the award-winning claireLogic, long-standing member now, I suppose, and advocates for the Chamber, will take you through some much more practical information and the current updates and what we've actually learned in the last few weeks. Hopefully it'll keep home workers better prepared and safe, and also their employers in the current environment. We'll welcome questions via the chat service, which you should all have access to, and which Fiona I will leave to work out whether she wants to pick up during the webinar or save them until the end, but I'll leave that to Fiona. So without further ado, that's a welcome from me, Sarah Paris, Account Manager at the Chamber of Commerce. Straight over to Fiona from claireLogic.
Thanks very much, Sarah. So I've put this together to help share some tech insights and best practice in the current situation. I hope that you'll take away something from this that will help protect your business, make remote working a bit easier and a bit safer. So obviously Sarah's already introduced me. My name's Fiona Frost. I head up business development for claireLogic. We're an award-winning IT firm and we specialise in IT support and IT strategy. Essentially, we become a company's IT department. If you have any questions, either during this or afterwards, you can email them into us at questions@clairelogic.net, and I will put my personal email address up at the end if you've got anything that you want to discuss with me. So, who are we? We're Oxfordshire based and we support a really wide variety of businesses. Everything from currency trading companies to charities, recruitment businesses, so that there's a really varied range of the businesses we support. We cover the whole of the Thames Valley, central London, and some of our clients have international offices and we support those as well. For a tech firm, we are a little bit different. We are huge advocates of a very people-centric approach, very empathetic, and that's within our team and also with the clients we support. It is genuinely a great place to work, and our clients see the benefit of a really happy, motivated team as well. We have obviously all seen a huge change in the way our clients are working, and the wider business community, how that's operating. Those businesses who can have their team members working from home now are. Many businesses have also taken the government coronavirus job retention scheme and have furloughed some or all of their team. So where are we now? There isn't one business that we support that hasn't had to make changes to their working practice and use their technology in a different way. We are all in a completely new business landscape, and that is now totally reliant on technology. Businesses have had to react really quickly to the government advice. Many of the businesses I'm speaking to now wish they'd had more agile working practices in place prior to this. It's interesting that as a business, claireLogic is performing very well, and more importantly, so are our clients. But we by no means had a crystal ball on the situation. We are very strong advocates of business continuity and disaster recovery. And I think that's why we have managed to get our clients working so well, because from a business continuity perspective, you would put things in place, for instance, if a client were to have a fire at their office, how they would continue to be able to work or continue to be able to access data that they needed, and essentially sending everybody home those systems have been able to kick in and work really well. But with quick changes, it's easy for things to slip through the net. Security has to be paramount. Security is still the biggest risk to any business. Cyber criminals are always looking to leverage any situation. And where we see ourselves now is no different. The most common way for a cyber criminal to try and manipulate you into giving information is a phishing attack. And it's basically a malicious email. It comes under the social engineering, where they're basically trying to get you to react to something before you've thought about it. So the phishing attacks that we're seeing at the moment are using fear or financial incentive to try and make you react quickly. You know, really common is for them to impersonate an organisation, something like the World Health Organization, like you can see the example here, and it will generally they'll try to use an organisation that you would trust. The next level of that, because those are sort of widely broadcast and not necessarily something that would be specific to you. The next level of a phishing attack is called a spear phishing attack, which would be something that would be much more personal to you. We work with lots of different security partners, and here is an example of just one product from one security partner looking at spear phishing, so really specific attacks, purely coronavirus related since the beginning of the year. So you can see in January there was probably just over 100 a day, going up to nearly 2,000 a day by the end of March. They haven't given the April stats yet. I'm sure I'll get those in the next couple of days. But it's really interesting to see where the criminals are putting their efforts. But like I say, that is just one specific provider, one product. If you look at something much more general, something like Gmail, for instance, now they've also seen a huge increase in these type of attacks. Every day, Gmail blocks 100 million phishing emails. Now, during the last week, they saw daily malware and phishing emails related to coronavirus, 18 million daily attacks. And that's in addition to astounding numbers, 240 million spam emails, which are COVID-19 related. Now, they're using artificial intelligence, and they're confident that the model that they have is blocking 99.9% of spam, phishing and malware from actually reaching your inbox. But when you're talking about multiple millions of these, you can see how some can easily get through. So every time you open your inbox, regardless of the email provider you're using, just have a level of suspicion. And we do expect these trends to continue and to become more sophisticated. So why do they do it? Well, the goals of the attacks range from distributing malware, stealing credentials, basic financial gain. Of the ransomware, showed the slide from our partner, security partner Barracuda. They've actually detected some ransomware that the criminals have named coronavirus. So yeah, and while phishing emails leveraging coronavirus are fairly new, the same principles apply to email security. So anti-malware, anti-phishing solutions can be helpful to stop malicious emails from actually reaching your computer, but you should always have an element of caution, because no one solution can catch everything. And it might sound fairly obvious, but watch out for any communications claiming to come from an organisation that you wouldn't normally get an email from. It's very easy to react to something that purports to come from a trusted organisation, but if it's somebody that you think, how would they have my email, even if it's HMRC, you know, whatever, just be really mindful of that. But also, on the flip side of that, criminals will also try and leverage, especially in a spear phishing attack, organisations that you do regularly communicate with. So again, just try and be aware of emails, of links, hover over links, have a look and see if it's going somewhere strange, have a look at the email address, and you know, just really be very vigilant. Another thing that we're seeing quite a lot of is criminals mimicking charities and asking for donations. To avoid falling victim of this and sending money, most of it's going to organised crime, so you really do want to avoid it if you can. And obviously, if you want to give money to charity, you want to make sure that it's going to the right cause and it is actually helping. So if you get an email asking for a charity donation, possibly go onto Google and just maybe Google the charity directly and donate through the website. If you do click on anything and you get to the point where a donation is being asked for through Bitcoin or a Bitcoin wallet, that should be an immediate red flag. In light of the increase in malware, GCHQ through the National Cybersecurity Centre, the NCSC, have actually set up a service where you can forward any dubious emails to them. The email address is report@phishing.gov.uk. And they've got an automated, again using artificial intelligence, they've got a scanning system which will actually look at these emails, and if they're taking you via a link to a website that has any malicious content, then that website will be blocked or taken down. So it is, it's really worth reporting these. They've actually removed more than 2,000 online scams just in the last month. So yeah, do report anything that you get. So with this huge increase in cybercrime, how do you best protect your business and your data? it's a delicate balance with security updates at the moment. When you've got your team working from home, you don't want to download a security patch that's going to then stop them from working, which is a possibility. Not all security patches or general patches will be compatible with everything across your systems, and they can cause issues sometimes. So it's worth speaking with your IT provider. If you do your IT yourself, reach out to us if you've got any questions. Having a layered approach to security is always the best, so that if you're unable to deploy a patch, or if you've deployed a patch to one computer and it's caused an issue, at least if you've got lots of layers of security in and around your data, then even if you do accidentally click on a link or go to a website which has got something malicious in it, it should protect you. And that's where something like DNS filtering, stopping you from going to certain domains, is a really good additional layer of security. There's so much anxiety around the current situation. It's really easy to become prey to something like clickbait, where there's a story, you click on it, and within a very few clicks you can actually be away from what started off as a legitimate newspaper website to somewhere where you really wouldn't want to be. So again, that's where something like DNS filtering will help. But once you are working safely from home, you need to be able to work well. Quite interestingly, we found that the whole file sharing, accessing data, software aspect of our clients working from home has been really smooth. The thing that we have found more of a challenge is getting business VoIP or internet phone systems working through home internet providers. They've got very different firewall protocols, and that's been one of our biggest challenges. It'd be interesting to know how you've been getting on with work phone systems working from home. Our own system was set up so we can all very easily work from anywhere. But some of our clients, especially those who have very high security around their data and were never anticipating having people working remotely, it's been more of a challenge for us. And the other thing as well is clients where they've got themselves, spouses, children, everybody using the internet at the same time, then phone calls can be compromised. And really, email isn't sufficient as a communication tool, and I'm sure everybody's email is working really brilliantly, but remote workers definitely benefit from having a richer technology experience, and video conferencing, things like Zoom that we're using now, is much better. You've got many advantages, especially for smaller groups, to help reduce a sense of isolation. One of the things that we've been doing to help support our clients is to help them navigate the adoption of new software and collaborative working tools, and to help them work out which one's best for them as a business. So there are instant messaging tools, things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, that we've been going through with them, helping them adopt and helping them use in the best way. They all have their advantages, and we've put together some comparisons. Now, at first, this chart would look like, if you're talking about features, Zoom and Teams would look to be very similar. But I would say if you want to mainly communicate within your organisation and you do a lot of work, say collaborating on documents and document sharing, and you tend to have smaller meetings, then Teams would definitely be better for you as a business. If you're doing a lot more via video and you're communicating with people outside of your organisation, so communicating with clients, or if you're setting up bigger meetings, then Zoom would definitely be the better of the two options. Zoom has seen a massive increase, millions of new users this year, and probably because the basic Zoom is free and it's very easy to use. But obviously there's been quite a lot in the media around the security of Zoom. So there's some things that you need to do to protect yourself while you're doing it. So you can do things like set up waiting rooms. Zoom bombing is a thing where somebody, I mean, I've said pranksters here, but some of it is really quite nasty, where people will disrupt a meeting. So if you are setting up a Zoom meeting, in the actual settings on Zoom, you can set a private or a public meeting. Don't make meetings public within the settings. One of the things that the NCSC advise is to only connect with contacts that are already in your address book, but that isn't always practical, especially if you're doing something more public, like a webinar or a wider meeting. But what you can do is make sure that the link and the password are only sent privately to people in email. So don't ever post the link publicly or the password publicly. So don't put them on sort of LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like that. And as I said before, there's a waiting room or a lobby facility where you can see who's waiting to come into the meeting and then let them in. And in and around something like this, it's important, and Zoom have got some great training videos actually within their help settings. And if you are asking your staff to use them, it's important that you give them some clear guidelines on how you want them to use it. And also what information can be shared through what channels. So if you're, for instance, having a discussion through an instant messenger system, something like Slack, where an outcome is agreed, do you want that to then be followed up in email so you've got some kind of audit trail? You've probably got some kind of processes in place. So just because everybody's working remotely, try and keep some kind of order and your normal processes in place if you can. It's also important to make sure that your staff don't start using things outside of what you've given them to do their work. So they might think, oh, it'd be much easier just to use my personal Dropbox for this. And whilst that is fabulous for sharing information, you know, through a family or photographs or something like that, the basic version of Dropbox that they're likely to have isn't GDPR compliant. You haven't got a handle on your data if it's going into things like that. So, and as it isn't GDPR compliant. If that was compromised, then you could get in some hot water. And also, when your staff are furloughed, you still have to be very mindful of the technology, and to make sure that they maybe don't have access to particular files. If you're using Office 365, you're in a pretty good position. You can easily make mailboxes shareable, or give them to other members of the team. You can see what's going on. But one of the things with Office 365 is that, despite popular belief, they don't back things up indefinitely. So the retention for any deleted items within it is only 90 days. So your most important documents and email integrity could be open to threat elements, or it could be something as simple as a member of staff being furloughed. I mean, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. They might have deleted something by accident before they went on furlough, or legitimately deleted something, but then want a reminder when they come back. So the Microsoft standard retention policy could cause you an issue. It's very easy and very cheap to back up Office 365 permanently. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about that. It's also worth activating a two-factor authentication on Office 365 or any other critical systems, especially if you have furloughed staff, because that will alert you to any attempted login that application's on. It could be the employee, well-meaning, trying to do some work, or it could be a hacker. So two-factor authentication will always notify you of any attempted login. Passwords is always an interesting topic to discuss with businesses. Having a password manager, especially if your team are using their own devices, it just makes life so much easier, especially if you're observing good password practice. Passwords all being different for each application are very difficult to remember. I won't run through this. You all know what a good password should be like. It should be complicated. It should be different for each application. But again, if you've got staff who've been furloughed for a long time, coming back, trying to remember things, it's, yeah, a good password management system is definitely worth thinking about. Is what we're going through now an opportunity for change? It's really interesting, the people that I'm speaking to over the last month or so. Lots of people are really enjoying working from home and having that extra time, and it could be important as a part of attracting the right staff. So maybe it's better to look at adopting some of these practices and integrating them more into your whole ethos as a business. It's obviously better for the environment if we're all not traveling. A lot of people that I've spoken to in the last month or so have, and one of the biggest things is getting your commute time back and what they've been doing with that, even if it's just to do more work where they're still working. I spoke to a business coach a couple of weeks ago who I network with, and he said that we've opened the box on our lives and we've taken them out of the packaging, and he didn't think that everything would go back in the box in the same way. And I have to say, I agree. This is a great opportunity to think about what you want from your business, what you want from your technology. And I think there'll be some quite big changes. And a really good example of that is we, as I said, we do a lot around business continuity with our clients. And some of them who've got very high security around their data and hadn't previously considered having any of their team having access outside the building, have actually, they pay to rent dark office space, so empty office space away from their building, so that if anything happened to their offices, flood, fire, anything like that, where they couldn't go into their office, they've got a space where they can deploy their key members of their team. Would dark office space continue to be rented in the same way after this? Will people see deploying their team at home as their business continuity solution from now on? And I think one of the great things to come out of this is how many businesses we've seen pivot or collaborate together, whether that's Formula One or Dyson making breathing equipment, or businesses that just wouldn't normally collaborate doing so. I think one of the most interesting of that is Apple and Google. On the 10th of April, they announced that they were working together to build a software building block between their platforms. It's an application interface or an API key, and that would let only authorized apps, but apps working around tracking and tracing COVID-19 to work more effectively across both platforms. And they're not normally businesses that you would see collaborate in this way. They're working on a contact tracing app, which will log every time via Bluetooth when two people have spent a substantial period of time together. Then if one person becomes infected, or they suspect they are, they can then report that within an app on their phone, and an alert can be then sent to other users to either self-isolate or to maybe get tested themselves when more tests are available. So something like that could actually end the lockdown far more quickly. Their method relies on using Bluetooth, so people would have to voluntarily sign up to the app, they'd have to have their Bluetooth on. But I really like the way that they've deliberately designed it so that neither they nor the app's creators can see who's been given a warning. So to keep everything really anonymous to really increase the amount of people who'd want to take them up on this. There are also many companies that we've seen who are offering their software free to the NHS. And I think we're going to see a lot of innovation over the next year. And we want to do our bit to help as well. So if you have any questions or concerns around your IT, please feel free to email or call me. We're happy to offer free advice. We have tools on our website to, we've got an interactive calculator so you can work out how much it would be to back up your Office 365. We've got other calculators which would help you calculate any downtime. So if you were affected by a malware attack, the Office 365 calculator, it you'd be surprised how cheap it is, and it also does take into account backing up things like OneDrive and SharePoint. So it's worth having a look if you're using that. Sarah, have we got time for any questions?
We have indeed. I haven't seen any come through as yet, but I just wanted to add that I can attest to nearly having been scammed. And I think, Fiona, you've possibly heard this story before. So I had an email from our CEO, Paul Britton, asking me if I was in the office today. And this is much more pertinent now that we are all working from home. The only reason I knew that was a false email, and it even had his little photograph in the corner. The only reason I knew it wasn't from him is because I was sat around 6 feet away from him. So fortunately I wasn't caught on that occasion, but it would actually be very, very difficult to spot a phishing. I suppose that would have been a phishing email of some sort. If I'd responded to it, if I had been working from home and I'd responded, then they're in now. And this is before these strange and unprecedented times. So yeah, it is important. I'm guessing that'll be more prevalent over the coming weeks as more people get odd requests that look genuine, and you wouldn't necessarily think, you know, it might have been a full stop in his email address that I wouldn't have spotted. That pure coincidence that I happen to be in the office. So we have to be safe out there, people. I haven't seen any other live questions come through.
Sarah, can I just add on that, on the phishing attacks? We've seen a firm of solicitors recently where somebody bought a domain which was their name but with an S on the end, and had managed to hack a client's email, so not the solicitor's email, and send an email that looked genuine, same email signature, everything that the solicitor was using, and ask for the completion money for a property transaction to be sent to a different account. If you are sending any substantial amount of money, I would always suggest that you do a pilot payment of £1 and then phone the organisation and just make sure they've got it. It takes, you know, a couple of minutes more to do that, but you can definitely make sure that when you're making a financial transaction that it's going to the right place.
Wow, that's scary, isn't it? We have just had a question in from Louisa Southey. Do you think people will trust Google that their data will be anonymous with contact tracing app? I'm not sure I believe they can make it completely so.
I'd like to see more on the tech side of things, but I think there are so many people who want to help. I mean, I'm already using an app to report every day how I'm doing, which the data's going to the NHS, you know, say whether you don't feel well or not, whether you've been tested. And I think for the greater good, I think a lot of people will be more than happy to use it, but I do understand the concerns around anonymity. I mean, one of the interesting things comparing, you know, a phone, you know, the various different phone systems. With Apple, all of the apps within the phone, you've got higher security because they can't communicate with each other. And with Android, there is some kind of communication between apps. So it might be that with the Android phones that they might adopt something more along the Apple lines if security is a question. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what they actually come up with.
I personally think it's actually quite important. It gives us a countrywide map, doesn't it? Even, you know, aside from the security aspect of it, I think, you know, for them to get a countrywide picture is actually quite a valuable thing. We need to embrace the technology, even if we don't have face masks in place.
Yeah, I can understand security concerns though.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Fiona. I think that's wrapped it up for now. People, do please either get in touch with me for Fiona's contact details if you haven't already jotted them down. Obviously, the webinar is going to be available in the library for members. Please do take this time to, you know, have a nose around the Chamber website, especially the COVID-19 hub and business continuity, and that information is updated daily from central government and from the British Chambers of Commerce. Also take some time that you might have saved by not having to commute anywhere to update your directory listing. It's really important that you're visible on our directory. So if you need your login details, please do get in touch with either myself or your account manager. Again, all your account managers' contact details are available on the Chamber website. But Fiona, thank you so much. We will pass on any further questions if they don't come to you directly. Stay safe, everybody, and have a great rest of the week or rest of the fortnight, whatever comes next. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.